Hi, my name is Danielle Elam, and this speech is on video games and aggression. Since the first introduction of video games 30 years ago, they have had a major impact on how people spend their leisure time. The first video game was nothing more than geometric shapes, and they could be controlled by the player. With newer technology becoming available, the realism in graphics almost makes it come to life. But with this reality also comes more realistic violent acts and situations. Included with all the new technology and graphics also comes a hefty price tag. People are spending more time and money on the latest game. So much that Thomas A. Kujams of Rochester Institute of Technology has stated that it is equal to one game for every teenager on Earth, or enough games that if laid end to end, it will scan the entire equator 2.5 times. With the video game explosion that has occurred in the last decade, many people are starting to question some of the content that is in them. From the violence and violent acts, the line between simulations and video games has been greatly blurred. Even the government has gone into the act and have released their own version entitled America's Army. This was done so they may use it as a tool to train the next generation of military specialists. This is very similar in the training that was done on the military troops after World War II. During the war, many soldiers could not fire their weapons and were killed in the process. But to combat this, the government came up with a training movie that basically showed violence and violent acts in an attempt to retrain the human brain to fire back. Today, video games are doing the training for them. Although real-life situations are different than that of an alternate world, the violence nonetheless is similar. A number of high school shootings are being blamed on violent video games, one of the deadliest being the Columbine shooting in Colorado in 1999. This raises concerns that violent video games may be affecting the aggression of children and developing adolescents. Connor, Steingard, Cunningham, Anderson, and Maloney of the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry have defined 2 types of aggression. The first one being reactive aggression. It is an angry, defensive response to a threat or frustration, like getting revenge on someone that has done you wrong. Second one is proactive aggression. It is a deliberate behavior that is controlled by external reinforcements and is usually a means of reaching a desired goal, like robbing a bank to get money. With the release of Nintendo and Sony's PlayStation, come a whole new level of games with better graphics and more capabilities. The developers of these games try to simulate reality as best as possible. All the new capabilities and innovations have meant more realistic violence and gore. An example of such gore is the game Soldier of Fortune for a personal computer. Each character in the game has 26 kill zones, or areas that the character can be hit by a bullet. This makes the game depict on a first-person perspective, like it is being seen through the eyes of the character in the game. Although the research is still lacking in young children and adolescents, recent contributions have given a clear understanding of the relationship between aggression and video games. Anderson and Bushman wrote an article for the Annual Review of Psychology. In the article, they state on what they call the General Aggression Model, or GAM as it is referred to. It attempts to explain both the development of aggression and individual differences and susceptibility to the influence of violent video games. Both situational and personological variables interact to affect a person's internal state. The internal state contains cognitions or thoughts, effects or feelings, and arousals or physical. These all influence one another and has an effect on the individual's interpretation of an aggressive act. The GAM also states that violent video games have both short-term and long-term effects. The short term being games are a situational variable, causing an increase in aggressive cognitions, effects, and arousal. The long-term effects have not had insufficient research, and the effects are just a hypothesis. But the hypothesis is that video games influence behavior by promoting aggressive beliefs and attitudes, which in turn creating a more aggressive behavior and expectations. So does this mean that anyone plays a violent video game is more aggressive? No. There are too many factors that have to be put into the equation in order to come to that conclusion. Most of these studies are not quite conclusive, and in most cases are just speculation. Someone with a background of hostility and aggression are already at risk, and the violence in the video games just brings it out. But it still doesn't mean that we should ignore the content of the video game. We as society still have an obligation to our young to teach them what is reality and what is make-believe. Just like the video game that's being played behind me. It is all make-believe, and nothing in it is real. So what is your video game? Is it violent or is it make-believe?